Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06, it's Monday. We're coming off a busy weekend with rallies all over the place for the presidential election. Tomorrow will mark the 3-week point before Election Day. Of course, voting already going on in Virginia and in other states, early voting. So we have you covered across the board on all that. Plus, of course, other things going on in the world, including a pretty impressive football game in Baltimore between your Commanders and Ravens. We'll talk to Trevor Matich about that in 30 minutes. Plus, we'll kick off next hour with Charlie Spearing, who's written a book about Kamala Harris. We'll get his assessment of where things stand now and where we might be headed in the next 3 weeks. It's Larry O'Connor, and that there is Julie Gunlock, who we know and love. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
And joining us right now is Joe diGenova. Of course, Joe diGenova, you can tell by the last name, a proud Italian-American. And since today is Columbus Day, Joe, I should welcome you and wish you and all who join your lineage and heritage a happy Columbus Day, as it's an incredibly proud moment for Italian-Americans whose forefather, Christopher Columbus, helped discover this land for the New World and the Old World.
Well, it's great to be with you, Larry, on this day, which people are trying to cancel, but they're never going to be able to cancel Christopher Columbus. And the left has been trying for 30 years to destroy Christopher Columbus, imposing standards of the 21st century on a 15th century hero who was a brave and brilliant man, a great, and now we learn, by the way, from DNA testing, that he's an Ashkenazi Jew.
That's right. I saw that. Which
adds to the thrill of being an Italian-American, along with my Jewish ancestors from Italy,
by the way,
Contini. So we're thrilled.
Also another reason why the left will hate him, because they always throw down with the terrorists whenever possible. Joe, by the way, this is
very important. According to the left, it's very important to hate Jews, especially in America.
Here's a song that's designed for school children to get the real truth about Columbus Day. Someone was already here. Oh, wait, there's a little more here.
Someone was already here, and they were cannibals.
Hang on, Joe. Hang on. Listen. Yeah, see, they start naming the tribes. They mentioned the Aztecs. I don't know if in the song they talk about the human sacrifices by the thousands that the Aztecs performed before they got converted to Christianity. But that's what they're learning in school, Joe.
Well, you know what? Even cannibals have rights. And so I think it's important that we recognize that the cannibals who were here when Columbus arrived didn't really need Western culture. They just needed a frying pan.
All right, let's move on to another topic. I thought you would love this column in the Washington Post. Our buddy Byron York points out the headline. Are you ready, Joe? Will the special counsel ever get his day in court? Talking about Jack Smith. This, of course, comes off of a narrative when Trump was, using all legal means to sort of question the constitutionality of the prosecution, even the legitimacy of Jack Smith as a special counsel. They were saying Jack Smith has the right to a swift and speedy trial. Joe, could you please, from your legal perspective, unpack this? The prosecutor representing the government has the right to a swift and speedy trial. When will the government have their day in court? Is that how this is supposed to be viewed?
The psychology and the psychiatry of this on the mind of the 21st century progressive leftists is amazing. I think these people are going to have a nervous breakdown on November 5th, even beyond what they had on November of 2016. There is a mindlessness to journalism today, which is reminiscent of the 1930s. This is really fascinating stuff. To worry about the rights of the government over the rights of the individual. We had a revolution in this country about this. We drafted something called the Constitution, which, as you know, progressives now hate. They don't like the Constitution. They want to change the Supreme Court. They want to eliminate the Electoral College. They want to eliminate the filibuster. What's wrong with America's left? The answer is everything.
Joe, I'm wondering if you had a chance to read this 32-page report released by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse claiming that, everything that Kavanaugh went through during the Senate hearing, that he looked more into it, and White House is claiming it was all true. Have you had a chance to read this report, and what are your thoughts?
I have not had a chance to read Senator Whitehouse's report, and probably won't for a number of reasons. Mainly, Senator Whitehouse is a liar. He's one of the worst senators in the history of the United States Senate. He's up there with some of the worst that have ever been in that great deliberative body. He's been on a jihad against everything and everybody that involves being a Republican or a conservative. Very anti-Catholic, very anti-Jewish in a fascinating way. And it's not surprising that he won't give up this bone. He's like a very sick dog, and he continues to want to assault and risk the lives of Supreme Court justices. Whitehouse is a very sick man. I will not be reading his report because I won't believe a word of it.
The report claims, I agree with you, and Whitehouse is just an odious individual. It claims, though, that the FBI investigation into the allegations made by Christine Blasey Ford into Justice Brett Kavanaugh, that the FBI investigation was flawed and didn't really explore the allegations in true fashion. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
This, and it says, a full proper investigation is the bare minimum that victims who come forward like Dr. Ford and Deborah Ramirez deserve. This report shows that the supplemental background investigation was a sham controlled by the Trump White House. By the way, if they're going to do that investigation, we really should look into Doug Emhoff's past behavior. But you're right. This is just another attempt to undermine the Supreme Court. But you believe this actually puts these justices in danger, Joe?
Oh, there's no question about it, and the proof is in the pudding. Look at what's happened to Kavanaugh. They've already arrested one person who came to his house in Chevy Chase to try and kill him with weapons. I think what Sheldon Whitehouse and the other Democrats on the committee, particularly Durbin, who's he's a very, very sick guy. He stayed at the fair too long. What's really dangerous is that there are people out there who pick up on these signals. Donald Trump is the best proof of how you can be a victim of the kind of rhetoric that President Biden, Harris, and Chuck Schumer and people like Sheldon Whitehouse have used to try to invalidate and destroy the Supreme Court. In their zeal to fight against the rule of law, they're undermining the rule of law in every conceivable way by trying to delegitimize the court. Yeah. And just look at their proposals to expand the court to 16 members so they can get the votes that they want. That's a very sick approach to the Constitution. And I think it's actually piling up on them and catching up. I think people are beginning to realize that these are dangerous people in government and that maybe it's time for the Senate and the House and the presidency to be in the hands of Republicans.
You're right in terms of delegitimizing the Supreme Court, but she pointed out that their effort to do that, their tactic is to dehumanize the individuals who are actually sitting on the Supreme Court. They really are incredible. It's vile what they're doing. These are men and women who are doing their constitutional duty and serving, and the only way they can delegitimize the institution is to dehumanize the individuals. And
by the way, I always felt that it was a mistake not to investigate the testimony of the women who testified against Kavanaugh. I thought that there were crimes committed in that committee by witnesses and that there should be a criminal investigation of all those people who came forward.
Thank you.
That was not organic. That was a plan that was designed. That testimony was so unbelievable and so filled with nonsense and utter corruption that there's no way that the Justice Department should not have investigated those witnesses for the way and the manner and the substance of their testimony that was presented to that committee.
Joe diGenova, when we think Italian Americans, and by the way, as we're talking about the Supreme Court, Justice Scalia was an incredibly proud and influential Italian American who was a leading beacon for conservative thought and originalist thought on the Supreme Court. We think about this day, Columbus Day. You think about Christopher Columbus. You think about great music from great Italian, like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, and you think about food, of course. I want to know, because I don't want to do something stupid. I don't want to have some stupid Americanized Italian food. I want to know what's being served in the diGenova household tonight to celebrate Columbus Day. Give us a hint.
Well, I will be making a homemade marinara sauce today, and I will be creating something that's very unusual. You don't see it a lot in Italian restaurants. It's called braciola, which is a rolled piece of meat stuffed with garlic, onion, herbs, spices, sometimes white raisins to create an amazing flavor with a fabulous marinara sauce.
Nice.
The only thing that hasn't been done yet is the homemade angel hair pasta.
Oh,
Lovely.
how long does
Lovely.
that homemade marinara? How long does it simmer from beginning to end? How long is that process?
Oh, it's not long. You can make a good marinara sauce in 3 hours. I mean, some people cook it all day, which is great. The better way to do it is cook it the day before, put the pot in the refrigerator, and let the garlic marinate, because when that happens, the flavors deepen to something that is actually, it's dangerous. It's flavorfully dangerous.
All right, Joe. Thank you for that tip. There you go. You got your food, you got your music, you got Scalia, and you got Columbus.
And brajol.
And frajol, rolled piece of meat, which was my
And
nickname.
we're inviting the cannibals to dinner.
There you go. Thank you, Joe diGenova. I appreciate it. Happy Columbus Day.
Thank you.
When you think about Italian American, I can't think of anything else that Italian Americans are known for.
I make a very good brajol.
It's not about you, Julie. All right. I was trying to make a mafia joke, and you just stepped on it. 7:17. Let's get to Jamie Whitten. Oh, that's the other thing Italian Americans are known for.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the home Paramount Pest Control Studio.
More desperation from the Harris campaign as they're calling in the big guns to campaign for them, since Kamala Harris is so odious and unlikable on the trail. Here it was in Georgia at a McDonald's where former President Bill Clinton and former frequent flyer on air Epstein showed up to the McDonald's, evoking images of Phil Hartman playing Bill Clinton back in 1992, eating Big Macs off other people's trays. And he wanted to order a McDonald's meal. But then, well, it didn't go very well. The whole idea of bringing Bill Clinton in there is like, oh, my God, he's so famous and we love him so much. And he's just the greatest. Bill Clinton here for Kamala. Listen to what the worker behind the counter said to him. All right, so now I don't know if you caught that. Eventually, she got excited because he said, I'm Bill Clinton. But why did he even have to identify himself and say, I'm Bill Clinton? Because she thought he was Joe Biden. Listen,
So cringe.
Listen to her. She's going to say, are you Joe? Are you Joe, Mr. Joe?
You Joe? Mr. Joe?
He's like, no, I'm Bill.
Oh,
Joe's older than me.
God.
How rough is that?
It's rough.
It's like, what's the point of bringing Bill Clinton out if people don't even know who he is? And it's understandable because he was president 30 years ago. But that's what they're reduced to.
It's like, don't you remember Monica Lewinsky?
Thank you.
The
Exactly.
blue dress?
Come
on.
She's like, now, how would I? Remind me again about your president? Oh, come on. How can you not remember the cigar? They just celebrated their 49th anniversary, by the way, Hillary and Bill. And what's the matter? Are we happy for the length and breadth of their marriage? And they're the perfect, ideal political couple, aren't they?
Yeah, just a loving couple.
Meanwhile, bad news in the Clinton household. Whatever income they were hoping to derive from being a producer in name only on the Broadway musical Suffs, which, by the way,
Suffs,
I mean,
yeah. Why does everything have to be shortened?
It's my former profession, and I try to sort of distance myself now from musical theater because I think I worked at it in the heyday. You know, I worked on Les Miserables, I worked on Beauty and the Beast and Ragtime. It's like in the 80s and 90s, that was the best time to be in theater. It's a little cringe now. All right, the best shows are revivals of the shows that I used to work on 30 years ago. But can I just tell you, a title of a play is important. You know, you want to go see a show and tell your friend. It's like, what are you seeing tonight? Suffs. What that is awful.
Okay, well, we should tell people what that stands for. Suffragettes.
It's
right?
about the suffragettes. Yes.
The suffrage
they were
movement.
Trying to recapture the magic of Hamilton, but instead of telling the story of our forefathers and our founding fathers in a very new and modern way, they're telling the stories of the suffragettes and the fight for women's vote, although they're not really telling the whole story because they don't point out, that Susan B. Anthony was a protector
pro-life.
of life
Yes,
and hated
yes.
abortion. No, they'll leave that
no,
out.
of course not. Of course not. No, they won't. But why does everything have to be shortened these days?
Yeah.
Suff sounds like something you blow your nose into.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
honestly.
Suffs is, you're right. It sounds like a medical procedure of some kind or some really bad TikTok account. And apparently it's a really bad Broadway musical. It got nominated for Tony Awards. It didn't win anything that counts, actually. It may have won for costumes or something. But they have now announced that they will be closing right after the holidays in January. The Music Box Theater will be available for Trump the Musical. Let's go. 7:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36, it's Monday, and we're flying through the daily news cycle at jet speed. That's why we have our three-point harness. It's like we're on a rocket sled. Sorry, still dealing with the Humana military minute. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. And Julie, in 8:05, we're going to talk to Charlie Spearing. He's a journalist and an author, and he knows a lot about Kamala Harris, so he'll give us some insights into this campaign. You ready for that?
I am.
All right, well, but before we do that, we got to talk about this. Because yesterday was a pretty great football game. They call it the Battle of the Beltways, although it's been sort of lopsided recently, but not yesterday, as the Washington Commanders headed up north by about 35 miles, and they took on the Baltimore Ravens, and they came up short. But Trevor Matich, it's one of those weird things where, you know, our team lost, but they looked good. You know why they lost, and it's not one of those things where like, oh, this team. It's like, actually, is it a good loss? Can we call it a good loss?
You know, Larry, I'm glad you put it that way, because this actually is very encouraging. In recent years, the Commanders would have gone to the Ravens and gotten blown out of the stadium, especially on a day when they couldn't run the ball at all.
Yeah.
But the Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. They just added the running back, Derrick Henry, who's a future Hall of Famer that the Commanders couldn't stop. But nobody has been able to stop him this year with that team. Mm-hmm. And they actually were dominating Washington on the scoreboard, especially in the running stats, on the stat line, especially with running stats. But they weren't dominated on the scoreboard. They only lost this game by one touchdown. And so that in itself is encouraging, that they were competitive on the scoreboard with one of the best teams in the nation on the road with a rookie quarterback. And the good thing that you mentioned is the play of that rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and of course the running game would have been different had Brian Robinson been able to suit up, although I was expecting Austin Eckler to be a more effective, right? He's had some pretty good games, but not yesterday.
Yeah, Austin Eckler is really good. Really good. And the reason he struggled yesterday running for the Commanders is because the Commanders' offensive line basically got dominated up front by the Ravens front. But that happens to everybody. This is the number one team in the nation, number one defense in the league at stopping the run. So that's not entirely unexpected. But I tell you what, Jaden Daniels at quarterback almost completely made up for that with the way that he played. He was smart. He was accurate. He was courageous. And he made a lot of plays under tremendous pressure from that terrific Baltimore front.
They were also in it right up till the end and really competitive, and you could see a way for them to be able to pull it out. Again, on the road in Baltimore, that's a tall order. So, again, I don't mean to sound so Pollyanna-ish, but, I mean, they're not going to win every game. But if you're going to lose to a quality team like this and you lose like that, you take it.
That's true. And, you know, what's another reason they lost? They couldn't run the ball, okay, but nobody's running it against Baltimore. They couldn't stop the run. Nobody can stop the Baltimore run. But they didn't stop the pass either. The defense was outclassed, and that is a problem. But that's something now that they've known, especially in the secondary. They're really struggling. But part of the reason is before Jaden Daniels, 2 of their 3 first-round draft choices watched this game healthy in street clothes as inactives because the team didn't think they were able to contribute enough to even suit up and watch from the sidelines in uniform. They made them inactive. One was a corner and one was a linebacker that they tried to switch to defensive line, and that didn't work out either. And so the secondary of Washington especially needs to be retooled, and this game just really exposed that in addition to the fact that they need to stop the run better.
Gotcha.
Trevor, real quick, I actually watched the game yesterday, and a little bit of trivia that came out from the game that I thought was really interesting was 4 Heisman Trophy winners were all playing in the game yesterday. Has that ever happened before? I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, I can't even imagine that. I know you had 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks facing one another. Who are the other two Heisman Trophy winners?
The Ravens quarterback and the Ravens running back.
Of course, Derrick Henry when he played at Alabama.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's fantastic. Now, who was not there was Taylor Swift. So, but
You were expecting another. Were you all read up? Did you prepare for this interview by reading the latest Taylor Swift news, Trevor?
I looked it up and I saw that she was at their last home game at the Chiefs. Now the Chiefs have a bye this week, but last week she was there. And of course, every game she's been to this year, 3 of them, they've won.
Are we
of course,
really
they've won
doing
all of their
this?
games.
We're really
Trevor,
doing
look at you coming prepared. You are so good. Next week I'll definitely have another question for you.
Well, you know, Taylor Swift is the NFL, and the NFL is Taylor Swift.
That's right.
Let's ask a quick college football question of Trevor Matich. He's one of the top college football analysts. And, of course, as I mentioned last week, Trevor, there's a lot of rooting interest here in the Washington area for the West Point and Naval Academy programs. And something happened yesterday when the AP announced their top 25. For the first time since 1960, both Army and Navy are ranked. This is an astounding year for the Academy football.
They're both ranked. They are both undefeated. Navy is 25, and Army is 23. And both of those quarterbacks, Bryson Daly of Army and Blake Horvath of Navy, should be considered in the Heisman Trophy conversation. If not at the top of the group of Heisman contenders, certainly in the conversation, because both of them are astounding.
Yeah.
Now, you expect Army and Navy quarterbacks to run the ball well, and they do. But both of these guys are astonishingly accurate throwing the ball deep down the field. The Army and Navy always have tried to throw the ball several times down the field to burn defenses that come up to try to stop their run. And occasionally the ball will land somewhere at random near the receiver.
Exactly.
Right? These two guys are hitting it over and over again. We talk about Army. I mean, in their last game, Daly threw 5 passes, completed them all, and averaged 28 yards per attempt, which is super high. Yep. And Horvath is even better than that.
Yeah,
so it's been
phenomenal.
Amazing.
And by the way, for everyone who's like getting excited about the fact that Army is ranked higher than Navy, Navy had the week off. They had a bye week, so Army just has played one more game. Navy's back at it this Saturday, so everyone just calm down. Trevor, thank you very much. Very fun stuff for football season right now. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys. And I'm looking for Taylor Swift to be in the Army-Navy game this year.
Yes.
Oh, God. Why would you even say that? You just ruined what was going to be It's 7. Well, we've got some hypocrisy from politicians to highlight for you. We'll start with Kamala Harris here.
Joy cometh in the morning.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, she spoke at a place called the Koinonia Christian Center. I am not familiar with it, but she was speaking from the pulpit during some level of Christian service here. I don't know the denomination. I'm sorry that I'm not better informed on this for you, but the fact that they brought in a presidential candidate to speak and deliver what I guess could be called a sermon is interesting and eyebrow-raising.
Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
Did you follow that?
No, I don't.
I believe that's from St. Paul's 18th letter to the Corinthians that has not actually been published and verified. But you know he sent a lot more than just the 2 letters to the Corinthians.
Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
Okay, I think that.
Larry, can I just say, I think this is a good time to say this.
Sure.
As a woman, I am so embarrassed that this woman has a shot at becoming president.
It's even close.
That it's even close. I am so embarrassed by this woman, and I'm not joking. It makes me really upset that this woman is close. Could win the presidency and be our first female president.
And again,
it's so upsetting.
If you were looking for Kamala Harris for your spiritual guidance or some level of development of your Christian faith.
Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
I just want you to recognize. And by the way, this is also very important for everyone to know. That was scripted. That was she was reading from a teleprompter for that moment.
Joy cometh in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Also of note, Kamala Harris. You remember when Kamala Harris was giving Ron DeSantis trouble because he wouldn't pick up the phone and call her during the preparations for Hurricane Milton?
Yes, it was a full Glenn Close boil a bunny moment.
That's right.
And it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
That's right. Put the people first, she said.
I will not be ignored.
Right before she got on the airplane that you heard roaring in the background there as she spoke with reporters, or maybe right after she got off the plane, she sat for a 2-hour photo session for the cover of Vogue magazine.
Yes. She was so busy
on the
caring
exact
about
same
the
day.
Yes. So busy caring about people who had, had their lives destroyed that she sat down and had her photo taken.
Yeah. Did you also
for
see the size of her hands in that picture? Did you notice
They
that?
are rather large.
They're really long hands. And I'm not sure if
weird.
the picture is photoshopped. Her face does look a little different than she normally, but it's Vogue, and they're used to doing the airbrushing and all that stuff. The headline, Vice President Kamala Harris on her race to the finish. Also, I hate to bring this up because I'm hardly the fashion police around here, but Julie, you're very catty when it comes to women's fashion. You'll go there for me.
Sure.
Have you noticed that she wears the same suit every day now?
Every time. She's
wearing this chocolate brown suit. It's the same one.
It is. And she has a very distinct sort of power suit look. But what's weird is she never wears anything else.
Yeah.
She's been in some casual situations, and I've noticed, why is she wearing a suit? It is kind of interesting. I don't know what they pulled this.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to get sort of the opinion of people on what outfit they liked the most. I don't know why they landed on this.
The
And again,
chocolate brown.
Doesn't
Doesn't she
not a
kind of
lot
look
of variation.
She looks a little like a UPS driver in that, doesn't she?
Okay, we're not yet. Well,
it's 7:53.